Good evening. I declare the meeting open at 6 o'clock. Welcome to the council meeting, the last for the year. Start by acknowledging that we meet on the lands of the Wadjuk Noongar people and pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging. I note that we have no members on apologies or leave of absence, so we will go straight to public question time and receiving of public statements. Not too much of a full house this evening. Don't rush to the microphone. Come forward. Thanks, Bianca. I will now go to the CEO to see whether we have any requests for leave of absence.
Through you, Mayor Cole, no requests have been received.
Thank you. I understand that we have also not received any petitions, deputations or requests for presentations, so I'll move to confirmation of minutes. Okay, could I please have a mover and seconder to adopt the meeting minutes of the 12th of November 2019? Moved Councillor Loden, seconded Councillor Fotakis. All those in favour? I declare the minutes adopted. Thank you. Announcements by the presiding member. I do like to do a bit of a year in review at the last council meeting. I know that you're going to really enjoy this. But I'm going to keep it very brief, but I have just been writing the annual report message for 18-19 financial year, and I was struck by how it was very difficult to summarise in 2 pages in 11-point font all of the work that the City of Vincent has been up to. So that was about the financial year, but in the calendar year, we have also been incredibly busy, and I just think that it's really important at this time of year to recognise and thank everyone who's helped drive positive changes in our community, because we are really lucky in the City of Vincent to have a really passionate and engaged community. And on Friday we will be celebrating our community volunteers, which is something that we do every year at Christmas time, and marking all that they bring to the City of Vincent. So volunteers in our libraries, in our community organisations, in our town teams, our sporting clubs, our local residents who engage with us and provide their feedback throughout the year, and also to our businesses who also have such a strong role to play in the City of Vincent. So with everybody's support, 2019 has been a really productive year. Just to touch on some of the achievements, one that I feel particularly proud of is finalising our public open space strategy, something that started in this chamber with myself, Councillor Susan Gondaszewski and Councillor Dan Loden. A notice of motion started that process, and we now have a really great evidence-based strategy that's informing all of our decision-making about green space in the City of Vincent. We started Western Australia's first 40-kilometre speed zone trial in our southernmost suburbs. We signed an MOU with inner city mayors demonstrating the City of Vincent's willingness to collaborate and work across boundaries to get the best outcomes for our community. We finally went both ways on William Street. A long time coming, but we got there, and we did it with the best roadworks announcement ever seen in local government. We have an outreach worker working at World Square with our homeless people who have been calling World Square a place to feel comfortable for many, many years. We finalised our Innovate wrap so that we have continued on our journey in reconciliation, moving to the next stage. We have rallied behind our high streets with the Beaufort Street Jumpstart initiative, and we have currently got a major Shop Local campaign happening to encourage people to shop local and support our town centres. We created 2 new town squares, the North Perth Common, which was absolutely filled to the brim with people and Christmas cheer on Sunday with the Children's Christmas Market, and the Leederville Village Square, which was an idea generated by our local town team, Leederville Connect, that we said yes and we got on and did it. We've also improved a lot of our public spaces. We've made a number of upgrades to our transport infrastructure, like the pedestrian crossing on Vincent Street and new bike lanes on Loftus, and we saw the extension of the safe active streets down Shakespeare Street. We became more playful with the launch of our pop-up play initiative and created low-cost play spaces for older kids and teenagers based on their ideas put forward by them to encourage them to get outside and play. And we created and supported a number of community events to bring our community together, and we're running a lot more over summer. Thanks to Dan Loden, Councillor Dan Loden, we've installed solar panels on all of our major buildings, and we're now seeing a 10% reduction in our power bills. We've invested in electric cars and hybrid vehicles. Now we are at 50% of our fleet are either electric or hybrid. And we continued to plant trees and native plants across Vincent wherever we could possibly find a spot to do that. We've started our planning to move to a third food and organics bin, which will be rolled out in October next year and will help us reduce our waste to landfill. Also, just want to note that we welcome 2 new councillors this year, Sally Smith and Ashley Wallace, and bid farewell to Jimmy Murphy and Rosalind Harley. And one of the things about the City of Vincent is that we are now in full festive mode, going around the community. Everyone is out in our parks, in our town squares, in our town centres, coming together, enjoying, having Christmas parties under our street activation policy, which made it a lot easier and simpler for neighbours to get together and connect on their streets. And it's really great to see that a lot of these initiatives that our community have been asking for under our priority of connected community are being embraced, and actually we're seeing that roll out across the City of Vincent. So that's just a snapshot. There's plenty more, but I just know that I don't want to talk for hours and hours because we have a meeting to get through, the final one for December. But I just wanted to say thank you so much to my council colleagues for making this a very exciting, engaging and collegiate way of getting things done for the City of Vincent community, and also to our CEO David McLennan and to all of our executive and staff who put in the great effort and hours. We really do appreciate all the work that you do on behalf of our City of Vincent community. So thank you very much. I'll now go to the CEO for declarations of interest.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Cole, I've received 4 declarations of interest. The first from Councillor Toppelberg in relation to item 12.5. The extent of the interest is that a family member owns and resides at a property adjacent to a portion of the right-of-way in question. The second from Councillor Toppelberg is a disclosure of financial interest in relation to item 12.1, lease of 246 Vincent Street. The extent of the interest is that representatives of Councillor Toppelberg's company recently engaged with the City in relation to potential upgrade works for the property at 246 Vincent Street. As the potential procurement of these products and services relates to the lease agreement, the councillor is not seeking approval to participate in the debate or remain in the chambers or vote on the matter. A declaration of interest from Councillor Gondaszewski in relation to item 9.4, 514 to 516 William Street. The extent of the interest is that Councillor Gondaszewski's children attended the same primary school as the children of the owners of the neighbouring property to the development. And the last declaration is from Councillor Gondaszewski in relation to item 9.1, number 160 Lincoln Street. The extent of the interest is that Councillor Gondaszewski is friends with Joe Chindasi, who is the Director of Chindasi Architects, the applicant for this item. Thank you.
Thank you, CEO. Before going to council members to ask whether you would like to bring forward items for debate, I just want to let everybody know that item 9.7, amendment number 5 to local planning scheme number 2, outcomes of advertising, has been withdrawn by administration. Following on from the briefing, administration is going to be making further revision of the proposed scheme amendment wording and would like more opportunity to work with the Department of Planning on that wording, and also to give our community time to see that revised wording and respond to that, given that we have had 15 submissions from our community on that item. So that will be returning to Council at the February 11th Council meeting. Councillor Hallett? Councillor Castle? Councillor Wallace? No? Councillor Loden?
Item 10.1.
Councillor Toppelberg?
Just confirming that we do need item 12.2, which is the appointment of a member. That wasn't, the nomination wasn't officially received last week, I assume. So,
Oh, Councillor Smith. Councillor Gondaszewski. I would like to bring forward item 12.1. And we have an absolute majority decision, and the auditors are in attendance for item 11.2. Okay, they're not here till 7 o'clock. Are you sure there are no further items? Okay, I'll get the CEO to go through what the en-bloc items will be.
Through you, Mayor Cole, I'll read out the items which weren't subject to a public question time and don't require a majority decision, which include items 9.1, item 9.2, item 9.3, item 9.5, item 9.6, item 10.3, item 10.4, item 11.3, item 11.4, item 11.5, item 11.6, item 11.7, item 12.5, item 12.6, item 12.7, and item 12.8.
I'd say that's a record. Can I please have a mover and seconder for the
That's one.
Yep.
Oh, yes. Okay, not the annual.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry, 12.7.
Sorry,
Yep.
we're pulling out 12.7 of those listed by the CEO because that needs to be moved by the Deputy Chair, Councillor Toppelberg. Okay, so
the carry forward is we're going to take out
which one?
11.6. 11.6 is a majority decision as well. It's the mid-year review, the budget review.
11.6 is an absolute majority decision, not noted on the agenda, but it's to do with carry forward, so yes, of course it is. Do you want to read them out again, or are we happy?
Did you get
Do council members wish for the CEO to read those out again, or are you quite happy with that? With we've just pulled back out 11.6 and 12.7. Okay. Okay, can I have a mover, please, for the en-bloc items? Move Councillor Fotakis, seconded Councillor Loden. All those in favour? I declare the en-bloc items carried. So we'll go to the first item raised by our sole speaker in the public gallery this evening, which is 9.4, number 514 to 516 William Street, Highgate, proposed 4 group dwellings. Can I have a mover and seconder, please? Move Councillor Toppelberg, seconded Councillor Loden.
thank you, Mayor Cole. I think this is a very, very good outcome for the site. We got a sneak peek in the consultant's report that's contained in there of what this proposal looked like at one point, which was, in my understanding, is prior to an architect coming on board. This is just a really good example of infill development, well thought out. Currently, there is a large vacant site there, and I think we tend to get a bit fearful when we drive past large vacant sites of this nature as to what may end up there. But whilst it won't, with the bin stores, it won't necessarily be as open as the pretty picture that presents on the front of the documentation. I think that it's once that landscaping has grown, it will present a fantastic development opposite the park. And I think the architectural form should be commended as well. So happy to support the officer recommendation.
Councillor Loden.
Thank you. I similarly support this development. I think it is a good result. My one concern was around the tree canopy, which is always challenging in these developments. I do have a amendment that I will put forward if I can get a seconder, which is the one on the lilac. Lilac?
Is there a seconder? I'd say that's purple. I just bought some lilac shoes and I think this is too dark.
Sorry, I'll amend my comment on the purple.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that. Is there a seconder for the amendment on the purple? Councillor Hallett, go ahead.
Thank you. I think it's fairly straightforward. There is a bit of a shortfall in the tree canopy for the site, and there is an opportunity in space for additional trees in the verge. There's currently 2 trees there, and this site has three lots, so you can fit, according to administration, 2 trees. We did have a bit of debate back and forth over the last couple of days about realistically how many trees can you fit in that verge, noting the 8 trees that are in the same space about 3 metres further back. This will help to address the canopy issues for the site, but also help to reduce the bulk and scale of the development as it presents to the street as well. So I ask for your support.
Councillor Hallett, do you wish to speak to the amendment? Councillor Toppelberg.
Thank you. I actually won't support the amendment, and the reason why is that we're talking about 2 trees. We're also talking about paper barks, which is a separate issue. But I'm actually comfortable, given the location directly opposite Hyde Park, that both and to be quite frank, the architectural merit of the proposal, I think that if it, whilst the canopy coverage issue relates to an arbitrary number that sits within our requirements in the built form policy, I think in the site context, given its relationship, the landscaping that's provided on site and its relationship to Hyde Park, I think that blocking that view of the development and for the occupants with paperbark trees, blocking that view of Hyde Park is actually an amenity loss for the site, and there's whilst the cost burden would be able to be by this condition placed on the owner, there's nothing stopping Vincent planting trees in that verge at any point in the future if it was deemed to be appropriate. But as it stands, I'm actually comfortable, despite the shortfall. The site itself, if you look at its location, I'm actually comfortable with the landscaping that's provided, so I won't support the amendment.
Councillors. Councillor Hallett.
Can I just ask the question potentially to Councillor Loden about the choice of the species?
That was at the recommendation of administration, as it's consistent with the current streetscape. They have a number of paper barks there already.
Councillors, perhaps I could just go to the manager. I haven't noted it down. I'm just trying to look in the report to see what the canopy cover achieved is. I haven't written it down in my notes, and whether you think this is a reasonable additional condition based on the canopy achieved across the site.
To you, Mayor Cole, in terms of the amount of canopy achieved on the site, it's on page 207 of the agenda, the top of that page. Ultimately, the built form policy deemed to comply standard is 30%. Unit 1 proposes 26.6%, Unit 2 25%, Unit 3 22.2%, and Unit 4 23.7%. So there is a departure for all of the units proposed. Administration's comment is provided on the amendment. Ultimately, administration is satisfied that the built form outcome, together with the canopy coverage provided on site, specifically within the front setback, is appropriate, and that notwithstanding that, additional street trees could be accommodated, but that isn't recommended by administration to be imposed.
And how many verge trees are currently on the verges in front of this development?
There are 2 existing street trees, Mayor Cole.
Okay, any further comments or questions? Councillor Hallett?
If in future admin wanted to add verge trees to that verge, what kind of liaison would happen with the owners of the property around the location, or would it just be chosen by admin?
Through you, Mayor Cole, when we plant verge trees, we always consult the residents nearby, and typically we don't install the trees if they object to them being planted there. So we always talk to the residents.
Councillors? Look, I think that I'm happy to support the amendment because this is quite a main thoroughfare down William Street across from Hyde Park. I think that the trees could be planted in such a way as to not interfere with the view, and I think given that there is less than 30% canopy across the different units, I'd be happy to support this, given that administration's advice is that that's reasonable also. Any further comments? Okay, I'll put all those in favour. All those against? Declare it carried with Councillor Toppelberg voting against. We're back to the substantive. Are there any further comments on the substantive motion? Okay, I'll put it. All those in favour? I declare it carried. Thank you. Strategy and development, I think you've gotten off very lightly this evening. Merry Christmas. Okay. Okay, so moving on to... Yes, the CEO is saying that your wife might think you've been sacked if you go home now. That was his words, not mine. Okay, so moving on to infrastructure and environment. 10.1, response to petition requesting the relocation of parking on Turner Street Highgate, adjacent Jack Marks Reserve. Before I call on a mover and seconder, I just wanted to alert you to the fact that Ken Seeley, one of the residents of the street, has provided an email which he had asked for us to distribute around the table this evening. So just bringing that to your attention on the white page. So can I please have a mover and seconder for this item? Moved Councillor Fotakis, seconded Councillor Loden.
Through you, Mayor, I just want to just address the email through from Mr. Seeley. One concern that he does raise, and this is a question directed through to the officers, the question that it is inconsistent with the inclusiveness of our consultation. I just wanted to get a comment from, I've got my own view on this, but I did want to actually allow the staff to comment on that.
Director, do you wish to comment? You don't have the email?
Through you, Michael, I've not seen the email. I'm not sure what's
I think the CEO is happy to take this question, Director.
Okay.
Thank you.
That's good.
Through you, Mayor Cole, administration's response to the issue raised by Mr. Seeley is that the proposal has a direct and permanent impact on the residents of Turner Street.
Short and sweet.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor, and thank you, CEO. I mean, my view on this, there are many decisions that we make in this chamber where our consultation perimeter is influenced and looks at those residents and occupiers and owners of properties that are in the immediate vicinity. So I'm very comfortable with that aspect of this, and we'll be supporting it.
Thank you, Councillor Fotakis. Councillor Loden.
Thank you, Mayor. I also have a question just around some email exchange that we've had between the briefing and the meeting. So my understanding from those emails is that we've got 3 options available that we're going to consult with the community on, being leave it as is, flip it to the other side, or have the third option being this zag, where we move some of the parking but not all of them. But I don't see that reflected in the recommendation in the report, so I just wanted to clarify, because that seems to say that we're going to consult just on flipping it to the other side, so I just wanted to clarify that, if I could.
Through you, Michael, that's correct. We've provided plans of the 3 options that we intend to consult on. One is keeping existing, one is flipping all parking to the other side on the park, and then the third one is keeping a portion of parking, I think, on the northern edge, just to create that zag for which will improve safety. So we were intending to ask the residents what they thought of those 3 options.
So I just have to navigate to the right spot in the agenda, so give me a moment. So the recommendation reads, approves consultation with Turner Street Highgate residents in relation to proposed minor parking measures, communicating the following. Proposed reallocation of all street parking to Turner Street Highgate from the north side to the south side, and the proposed reallocation of the no stopping zone on Turner Street Highgate from the south side to the north side. So to my read, that says we are consulting on moving all the parking to the other side, but there doesn't say anything about doing the third option. Am I reading that correctly?
Yeah, through you, Michael, I can see the issue. You are reading that correctly, yes.
can I request an amendment to rectify that somehow? Is it just a case of changing, referring to the drawing number?
Through my call, I think so. If you refer to the drawing number and then we included those drawings in the minutes, I think that would do it.
I'll let other people speak whilst I figure out my amendment.
Councillor Gonchevsky.
I just have a question first up in relation to the drawing number 3462 PP04. I note that the proposal retains some parking on the northern side, but not the full extent, but only 2 bays in the section of the street towards Lord, rather than the 1, 2. It would appear about 4 or 5 bays are currently there now. Can I just get some commentary on the decision to reduce the amount of parking in the eastern section of the street?
Yes, Cole. The engineering designer has done that. I assume it's because of the distance between the intersection. I need to check that, but I think he's allowed for vehicle movements to the intersection, and that's why he's lost that parking.
But that's not present in drawing 3462 PP01. It appears that is it that the drawing, the what is currently there, is considered to be non-compliant or unsafe or otherwise, or not preferred, perhaps?
Michael, I don't think so. I think it's the traffic movements that that is created by the ZAG. It's allowing that movement for cars to cross. I mean, I would need to check exactly the engineering reason for that, but I believe that's the answer.
I do take your point, Councillor Gonchevsky, because to me it looks like if you look at what is the second page, it looks like if you look at what's there on the first page, which is existing, that you could fit 2 additional bays outside of 381. Because those bays are currently there and existing. Would you wish to comment, Director?
Yeah, through you, Nicole. I think one of the ways we could deal with it is that if that is possible, that we add it back in to the design. I need to check with the designer tomorrow whether that's possible, but if it is, we could add that back in. There'd be no objection to add it back in for reasons of principle, but I would need to check that with the designer.
Okay. And Councillor Loden, the CEO has a suggestion in relation to clause 1.1. The proposed reallocation of some or all street parking on Turner Street, Highgate, from the north side to the south side of the street. Would that be sufficient?
And I just think we need to include a reference to the 3 drawing numbers as well. So some or all of street parking on Turner Street, Highgate, from the north side to the south of the side of the street, comma, as outlined in drawing numbers 3462-PP01, 02 and 04, sorry. Yeah, but that's currently what we've got.
Was that okay for our governance team, or do you need that repeated? Okay, thank you. Just while we're waiting, I'm just wondering about this consideration of the 2 bays potentially outside of 381. That's something that probably needs to be noted in the motion as well. Just waiting for the wording to come up on the screen. Is that ready to go? Thank you. So that's been moved by Councillor Loden, seconded by Councillor Castle. Thank you. Do you think that you need to see it on the screen, or perhaps we could just have Councillor Loden read it back again? Oh yes, go ahead. Talk to it, please.
So I think this just really encapsulates the intent of what the discussion was out of the briefing, the feedback and the intent of what administration is seeking to do here. And I quite like the idea of consulting on 3 different options, making it really clear that these are the 3 options that residents can consider. And if they can then make a choice on what they think is going to be the best fit for their streetscape.
Councillor Castle.
Through you, Mayor Cole, yes, I support the amendment. Just to comment on the wording, I'm not sure we actually need to include the reference to the drawings, because I think that does complicate it when it comes to potentially more bays in front of 381. I can't see that there's going to be lots of different configurations of how these could be presented. So if we just kept it as some or all of street parking being reallocated, that gives a bit of flexibility to administration to just tidy up those plans before they go to consultation. But
I think
it's not. It's not.
I think there are 2 ways. You could take out the numbers, or you could leave the numbers in and then have an additional clause stating that you'd wish administration to consider retention of the current bays outside of lot 381.
Seems to be over-wording the whole issue, but I'm not going to die in a ditch on it.
Okay. Well, we have an amendment on the table. Does anyone else wish to comment on it? The wording is before you now. Look, I'll comment. I'm slightly dubious about providing 3 options. I think it could it could become a tie, or it's quite a lot to put out to the community, and I think it might be difficult to see where the consensus lies, but we'll see. Okay, I'll put the amendment unless there are any other comments. Okay, all those in favour? All those against? I'll declare it carried unanimously. We're back to the substantive. Councillor Toppelberg.
Thank you. Trying to think of the right words without saying something I shouldn't. We respond to petitions as we're obliged to. There is ample parking on Broome Street on both sides of the road, Wright Street on both sides of the road. There are competing uses for Turner Street. There is a cafe that sits adjacent to the park. There is an Airbnb. There is an extremely popular fenced dog park, and there are people who live opposite it. Currently, some of those conflicts result in people wanting things to be different to suit them, and absolutely, if we flip it to the other side of the road at the expense of consultation and at the expense of doing it and the angst that the Mayor has alluded to, particularly going out with 3 options, all we're going to end up doing is satisfying some people to the dissatisfaction of others, and we may well see a petition to move it back to the other side of the road. I cannot see any logic at all in going down this process when there is no measurable benefit for anybody in moving it. The only thing that I can see that actually suggests to me that maybe a change is somebody reversing out of the driveway of a property that they reside in will potentially have a vehicle parked opposite their crossover, which means that their ability to be able to get out of their driveway will be hampered, which to me is enough reason to just say no. So from my point of view, I don't support it. We have an obligation. I respect and understand where the petition has come from. If anyone drives to that park and wants to park adjacent to it, there is, at a rough calculation, probably 250 lineal metres of potential parking on Wright Street or Broome Street immediately adjacent to the park. We can have whatever comments we want about whether people should or shouldn't be driving to a local park. The fact is that they do, but I think that's well accommodated for, and I am not supportive of progressing this any further. I think it's a waste of the community's time to actually be going out with these options when, as the Mayor has alluded to, we're ultimately going to be satisfying some to the dissatisfaction of others and end up with exactly the same decision coming back to us. So I don't support taking this any further. I think we should just accept the petition and decide not to proceed.
Thank you, Councillor Toppelberg. Councillors, comments, amendments? Councillor Gonchevsky.
I can't remember Mayor Cole's exact words, but they were very good in relation to a further amendment to drawing number 3462 PP04, and I guess in relation to the retention of parking bays outside lot 381.
Councillor Gonchevsky, could I suggest that that would also apply to 3462 PP02?
Yes, although it would be outside a different lot. But yes, at the perhaps I would say at the eastern end of Turner Street. I don't even know where it'd go. I guess it would be that I presume it would be an amendment to item 1.1. After the drawing number, it would say something like subject to amendment to drawing 3462 PP 02 and 04 to retain additional parking bays at the eastern end of Turner Street.
Is there a seconder for the amendment? Seconded, Councillor Loden. Do you wish to speak to it? Councillor Loden, do you wish to speak to the amendment? Is everyone happy to move forward without the words on the screen? Did you capture that okay to vote on it? Yep. Okay, I'll put the amendment. All those in favour? All those against? I declare it carried with Councillor Fotakis voting against. Back to the substantive.
Yeah, so I'll just speak briefly. Look, I completely understand what Councillor Topperberg is saying. However, being a process person, I do feel that the missing information that we have on the basis of receiving this petition and the technical assessment from engineering is the community consideration of what is being proposed. I'm not supportive of broader consultation. I think that the petition has certainly captured the views of, say, many park users, and that seems to be also the view of some Turner Street residents, as well as other locals. But I think, look, I'm supportive of taking this through and seeking the views of Turner Street residents on this before making a final decision. I do note my concerns are also in relation to a potential safety gain from improved visibility for residents as they reverse out of their garages, being overwhelmed by a risk of low-speed vehicle collisions with cars parked across the road. So, and I think at this point in time, I don't have a clear answer or any really clear guidance from the information provided as to which one is considered to be a bigger risk. We know that there is potentially the benefit of increased parking in proximity to the park. That would be considered a positive, but yeah, I'll just wait and see what happens as a result of the consultation.
Councillors? Equally, I do understand Councillor Toppelberg's concerns raised, and I was hoping that we could potentially resolve this council meeting by door-knocking residents in the area rather than it carrying over until the 11th of February meeting. But I do see that if we can retain the parking bays outside lot 381, where they currently are, that overall this model does stand to gain 5 additional car bays, and we have received a petition, but I think that the important thing for me is that we understand what the residents of Turner Street wish to support, because this does ultimately have the greatest impact on them. As Councillor Toppelberg points out, there is a lot of parking on Bright and Broome Street for park users, and I think that if we don't see the return of parking bays outside 381, it does really, for me, represent a change from resident parking to parkside parking. But I think that if we can retain those bays outside 381, 4 and I think there's currently a bay outside 6, which would then revert to the other side of the road, then that pattern of those away from the park still will have residential parking close to their homes. So it is. We have received a petition. There are signatories on that petition from Turner Street that have supported it. And I think that because there are potential gains of up to 5 car bays, it is something that the city is in a good position to advertise. But I do hope that having 3 options, I am slightly concerned that that's a little bit too far. But we are where we are, and we will see what comes back from the residents and the owners of the properties, because they will also be consulted. Councillor Toppelberg.
Can I just ask a question through you to the Director of Infrastructure and Environment? The petition requested a trial period of 12 months. That's not specified in the recommendation. So is it intended that the question will be asked and whatever happens, presuming it's not nothing, would then be in place for 12 months? Or is this, and we'd be back sitting here next December having the same discussion? Or is the intent that once the consultation is complete, if it is decided to make a change, then that change would be permanent? Because that's not in line with what was requested in the petition.
Through you, McCall, we've not drafted the letter yet, but we would refer to the petition. The suggestion is a 12-month trial. But I would suspect if there's broad support in Turner Street, we would recommend that, it was just changed. There wasn't a trial, provided that Turner Street, if there was 100% approval, then it wouldn't make sense to do a 12-month trial.
Director, could I also ask a question in relation to Clause 2, noting that this will be presented to Council by March 2020? My understanding is that this would come, that we were talking about this potentially coming back to February, so that this doesn't drag out any longer than it needs to. Is there any issue with this coming to the February 11th Council meeting?
Through you, McCall, our intention is to bring it to February, but we've put March in the report just to give us that extra time because we are very busy at the moment.
Councillors? Okay, any further comments? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? All those against? Councillor Wallace and Councillor Toppelberg voting against. Thank you. Okay, the next item is an absolute majority decision required. 10.2, making the Parking and Parking Facilities Amendment Local Law 2019. Can I have a mover and seconder, please? Moved Councillor Toppelberg, seconded Councillor Gontaszewski. Any comments? Any comments, councillors? Okay, I'll put it. All those in favour? Declare the motion carried. The next item is 11.1, lease of Beatty Park Leisure Centre Cafe to Hospitality Service Providers Proprietary Limited. This is another absolute majority decision. Can I please have a mover and seconder? Moved Councillor Loden, seconded Councillor Fotakis.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm happy to support the officer recommendation in this case. I think this is a good outcome from a financial point of view for Beatty Park to turn around something that's making a loss into what is making a profit. I also note the additional information provided in the briefing around the depreciation costs that we'll see over a 10-year period of $62,000 and just under $10,000 for that specific section of the building, but stand to bring in $340,000. So that money should help the bottom line a bit, which is good to see. I'm not going to propose an amendment, but I would say that we should be thinking that a portion of this rent should be allocated towards this maintenance of those assets, going into asset sustainability. So it's something that we need to make sure that we are continuing to do in our budget process each year, of $7,000 a year, I think, if I've done my math correctly there. But other than that, yeah, I think this is a good result.
Councillor Fotakis.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I did toy with an amendment based on some of the age of some of the items there, but decided not to complicate the process with that. Like Councillor Loden, I think it's a good result. it's a difficult market out there. We see a lot of our town centre retail space and food and beverage space is vacant. So I don't think that even our own facilities are exempt from the tough economic times that are out there. This is quite a restrictive space in terms of traffic flow. So I think the outcome that we've been able to get at this stage, I'm satisfied with that. But like Councillor Loden, I think we'll be looking at consideration of how we look at sort of future sustainability more directly with some of the income and some of the depreciation on those assets. But for me, that's a discussion that we can actually hold on another day. So I'm happy to support it.
Thank you, Councillor Fotakis. Any further comments? Okay, I'll put it. All those in favour? I declare it carried unanimously. The auditor's here. Okay. So we're still waiting on the auditors to arrive. They were asked to attend at 7 o'clock to attend in relation to 12.7, the audit committee meeting. But we also cannot then adopt the draft annual budget until we've heard from the auditors, 11.2. So we will move on to some chief executive items in the meantime. So we'll start with 12.1, lease of 246 Vincent Street, Leederville, to Minister for Works, Department of Local Government, Sport and Cultural Industries. We have Councillor Toppelberg leaving the room on the basis of a financial interest in this matter. Can I please have a mover and seconder? Moved Councillor Loden, seconded Councillor Fotakis.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm happy to support the officer recommendation on this item. I know that there's some contention around this with the change of lease terms and the 40% incentive, but when you look at that over a 10-year period with the period of the lease, we are able to repay our debt. And I recognise that if this lease does not go to Department of Local Government, Sport and Cultural Industries, we will be in a very difficult position of finding a tenant. I know there has been a lot of negotiations back and forth on this, and I feel like it is, whilst it's not a great outcome for the city, it is probably the best outcome that we can get. I am concerned about the those initial lease fit-out costs that we have there, but to my understanding that's been pushed quite a long way as well. I won't move the amendment, but I'm interested to see what other people think of the amendment as well. And I have some questions around that too, if that gets moved. But otherwise, I'm happy to support the proposal. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fotakis.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Also happy to support the recommendation. Now, this is an issue that I think, yes, like Councillor Loden there's been a lot of discussion about, and whilst I think in the broader commercial sector may not be regarded as the best outcome, but I think given the restrictions that we have in terms of the tenant, we're only able to really negotiate with one tenant on this, and I think that some of the amendments that have done through the negotiation of work that the city staff have and the CEO have done to get us into a position where I'm satisfied. I mean, I think looking at the amendment, it may be even going another step forward to So should that be proposed, but just going another step forward to reducing any potential financial burden on the city, and that was always my concern by the 1.6 million of the upgrade works as to what that meant for us moving forward. Small council with a relatively small budget, certainly when it's compared to some of these larger Uber government departments that we've got now, but I'll leave it open to the debate from my fellow councillors. But should the amendment be proposed, I'll be happy to actually support that as well.
Councillors, Councillor Hallett.
Can I move the amendment? Because I'd quite like to hear some of the discussion around it.
Sure. Is there a seconder? Councillor Gondaszewski.
I look forward to anyone commenting about it. I guess I'm curious about the difference in the caps, and I guess what does that mean for the tenant in establishing fit out, because the comments from admin have said that would limit it, but I'm assuming from prior conversations that there may be other options for the tenant to find that money and then we reimburse evenly over the period.
Just to clarify the question, could you just clarify the question, Councillor Hallett?
Sure. So the amendment suggests that there's a limit to of $500,000 per annum, rather than the $1 million that was originally in the report. And I'm just wondering if the tenant wants to spend more than that, are they able to access it from Treasury or elsewhere?
Through you, Mayor Cole, we couldn't speak to how the tenant would go about funding its fit out. That would be up to the tenant. Our concern with the language around the proposed amendment largely relates to that. It would be unlikely that a $1.6 million fit out project would be delivered over 3 years and cost the 0.53 million per annum. It'll be lumpy. It'll either be 1.6 million in 1 year or 1.6 million spread over 2 years. So it's it's unlikely to be an even project to do fixtures and furnishings in that building over 3 years to those equal numbers. So the original language was largely around providing some flexibility for that fit out to occur over 1 or 2 financial years. And it would really be up to the tenant to figure out how they would fund it if they weren't able to access $1.6 million in the first or the second financial year, if that's when they chose to. But our understanding from the tenant is that fit out is unlikely to proceed imminently.
CEO, could you just provide some further information about what the intention of the tenant is in relation to the fit out and the likely time frame?
Through you, Mayor Cole, our understanding is that the fit out is unlikely to occur. The full fit out is unlikely to occur in the first financial year, so it would likely to occur over the second or third financial years. So we don't think this will cause a financial burden on the state government, given, as you mentioned, they have other funding options, but we just can't speak to how they would go about doing that.
So if we went with the amendment and they're unlikely to do a fit out in the first financial year, but then the instalments would be over the first 3 financial years, would that not satisfy the need to do it over a 2 financial year period whilst giving the city some more financial security about those payments?
Through you, Mayor Cole, we have brought the amendment language to the tenant's attention, and we haven't received a formal response to that. So we're not in a position to advise exactly how the tenant would react to the proposed language, but it has been brought to their attention and we didn't receive an objection to it, was probably the best way to describe it.
Did they confirm that they received it and had the opportunity to object if they felt strongly?
Through you, Mayor Cole, yes, I spoke to their consultant. He said he can't confirm what their proposed schedule of fit-out works is. I don't think the department has determined it yet, so they can't confirm exactly how much money they would need each year. So they haven't provided a comment on whether a 1 million cap or a 0.53 cap is more appropriate, but they did say it could limit what works they can undertake in each year.
Councillors?
I can appreciate that this is possibly a late in the day change. However, I think that ultimately at this point in time, I think this does provide a better outcome for the city in terms of our ability to have that surety as to when and to distribute the payment over 3 financial years. I guess my question would be that is there any assessment that this is likely to be a showstopper, and if it was, what would the process be?
Through you, Mayor Cole, until council makes a decision, we can't advise what the tenant's reaction would be. I would not consider it a showstopper, to use Councillor Gonuszewski's words. I think this would be speculating. I think this would be manageable from the tenant's side, given their financial resources.
All right. Well, I appreciate that speculation, but I do gain some confidence through it. Look, I'm supportive of the amendment at this stage. I'm supportive of this amendment. I think ultimately it's a better outcome for the city, and if it's not going to jeopardise the entire process, then I think I would be very happy to go ahead.
Councillor Loden?
Thank you, Mayor. So I guess my understanding of the worst case scenario as it sits currently would be that we have to pay $1 million in the first year, and then probably potentially the balance in the second year so over 2021, 21, 22, versus 3 equal payments of 0.53 million. Our cost of capital is, I think, just under 2%, so this equates to about 16 grand, to my understanding, between this and an amendment, which is not a huge sum of money, but it is not insignificant either. So on that basis, if the department is happy to accept this amendment, I think that's a good result for us, and I'm happy to support the amendment.
Councillors? I put this amendment forward because I thought it was important to give the city a lot more security around when we're actually funding. We have managed to bring down the capital works expense from $750,000 estimate to $500,000, and there was also work on this incentive. But I think that I don't think this is unreasonable, and I don't believe that the department has an intention to fit out in the next financial year. I think these things take a lot of planning, having been a state government public servant involved in fit outs and relocation of staff when I worked for the Department of Culture and the Arts, and it was moving to 140 William Street. The actual transitional arrangements took at least 12 months. So I think this is something that really gives a lot more financial security to the city, who was not necessarily, before the lease arrangements, negotiations commenced, we weren't necessarily expecting to be hit with a rent reduction plus a $1.6 million fit-out plus capital works expenditure to the magnitude of up to $750,000. And I think this meets our responsibility to the tenant to provide a modern building that will ultimately reflect the fit-out that the state government requires, still in a timely way, but in a way that allows us, with our relatively low rating base, to plan for and afford this in a way that, although it was not necessarily expected 12 months ago, I think that this makes it a lot more manageable, and I don't believe that it would cause any disruption to the department in moving forward. So yes, I'm supporting the amendment. Any further comments on the amendment? I'll put it. All those in favour? I declare it carried. We're back to the substantive. Is there any further comments on the substantive motion? I do just want to finally comment that it is an unusual situation to be in, to own a building on state government land with a planning condition that specifies that this can only be used for the administration of recreation purposes in Western Australia. We are actually in a slower market, and the rent reduction makes sense, but I think that if you go back in time and look at the fact that a 25-year loan was taken out at the time that the decision to build this building was made, but a lease of just 15 years with a 5-year option was put in place, I think it would have given the council a lot more surety for the leasing term to actually match the loan period of 25 years. But I think that given the circumstances and where we are, I do really appreciate the effort that administration has gone to tweak this and to work to secure the long-term tenancy, because I think that having the department so close to Leederville is vital. We're not really in a position to open it up to market. They have been a great tenant, and I think that it'd be really fantastic to see any further move from the department to join their sport and rec colleagues in the future. So obviously fit out, that brings opportunities to have more people on site, and that's a good thing. So I just wanted to say thank you to the CEO and to the Manager of Governance for working with us to secure what is essentially a slightly better option than what first came before us, and was, that option was markedly better than what was first put to us by the tenant, and a lot of work has gone into that. So thank you for that. Any further comments? Okay, I'll put it. All those in favour? Declare it carried. Okay. The auditors have arrived, so we'll invite them in. And we will then go to 12.7, or wait for Councillor Toppelberg to return, given that he needs to move this item. What are their names? I'd just like to welcome Greg from Centenary Butler, our auditor, and also More Stevens. Sorry, I've been missing. That's the competition. Apologies. Apologies. I'll start again. We have Greg from More Stevens and Aram for the Office of the Auditor General. Welcome to our meeting. I'll just get the item moved, and then we'll move to suspend standing orders so that you can provide your overview to us. So we're dealing with item 12.7, report and minutes of the Audit Committee meeting held on the 26th of November 2019, moved by Councillor Toppelberg, seconded by Councillor Loden. Thank you very much. Can I also have a mover and seconder to suspend standing orders? Moved Councillor Toppelberg, seconded Councillor Hallett. All those in favour? Thank you. Welcome. Resume meeting procedures. Moved Councillor Toppelberg, seconded Councillor Loden. All those in favour? Declare the motion carried. So we're back. We have a mover, Councillor Toppelberg, and seconder, Councillor Loden. Yes, it was you, Councillor Loden. Thank you. So we've heard from our auditor, Greg, and also from the Office of the Auditor General, who will be taking on the audit function next financial year. Relatively quite good, but I'll move to the mover of the motion.
Thank you, Mayor Cole. Just to reiterate what you said before, I think certainly the process has been well explained, but the shift at the first audit committee meeting of the new audit committee, the appointment of an independent chair, I think, is a great step for Vincent. We started on a process that has been largely embraced by the sector and being pushed quite strongly from the state, and particularly out of the office, obviously, of the Auditor General. But we moved towards. We've been moving down this path for some time, and it is great to have an independent chair of our audit committee. And yeah, that was all.
Thank you, Deputy Chair. Councillor Loden, do you wish to speak? Any comments from any council members on the Audit Committee agenda or the visit from the auditors? Okay, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? I declare it carried. I'll now go back and address the other financial items on the agenda now that we've heard from our auditors. So item 11.2, draft annual report 2018-19, an absolute majority decision is required. Can I please have a mover and seconder for this item? Moved Councillor Toppelberg, seconded Councillor Hallett. Councillor Toppelberg.
Thank you, Mayor Cole. You did make some comments in your opening remarks. Just look at I think it's fairly self-explanatory. The only thing that I will ask, because I did send an email about it, but it wasn't updated, is that just noting that Councillor Loden is the co-chair of the Reconciliation Action Plan Working Group for the year and should be recognised as such in the report. Yeah, I think it's fairly self-explanatory. I think the way that it's laid out and presented is actually very readable as well, which is unusual for local government annual reports. So that's something that I think will be well appreciated by the community.
The CEO just wishes to address a version control issue.
Through you, Mayor Cole. Yes, I think there might have been a version control issue which should have included the CEO's forward, which has been tabled now, and that amendment that was requested by Councillor Toppelberg. We definitely have picked that up in the final version, which we'll publish. And just to note, the tabled forwards of the Mayor and the CEO, which we'll pick up in the revised recommendation if they could be taken as read and included in the annual report.
If you could accept that as part of the report, that would be much appreciated. Okay, so Councillor Loden, did you wish to comment? No? Okay. Does anyone wish to speak? Or was it Councillor Hallett? My apologies.
Thank you. Just, I guess, to reiterate, reading through the annual report, well formatted and designed as it is as well. But the content's a really great reflection of the extraordinary work that this council does and the efforts of administration. So, you know, as the Mayor said at the beginning, thank you to everyone for your contribution you make to the work that we do. Did just want to comment quickly on the gender equality report and just flag that over the last 12 months the City of Vincent made further progress to narrow the gap to 1.49%. Which is rather good in comparison to the WA gender pay gap, which is the highest in the country, still at 23.1.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hallett. I see that there's a proposed amendment on the screen. If any council member would wish to move that. Moved Councillor Toppelberg, seconded Councillor Loden. The amendment, just so for the purpose of the live stream, is to add... Oh, it's disappeared off the screen. It's to add to clause 1 of the motion the following wording, which has disappeared off the screen, but I'll just wait for it to come back. That at the end of clause 1 the following wording be added, inclusive of the Mayor and CEO's forward tabled at the meeting. So we have a mover and seconder. Is there any further comment in relation to this amendment? I'll put it. All those in favour? I declare the amendment carried. We're back to the substantive motion on the annual report. Are there any further comments? Okay, I'll put it. All those, Councillor Fotakis, you wish to comment?
Just one very quickly, Mayor. I don't know whether I'm biased, but I really enjoyed reading the annual report. It's just so packed full of great stories about the work that the city is doing. And like Councillor Hallett, I was really pleased to see the results with the report on the gender equity with the wages. I think that that is just one aspect of just an example of the really great forward thinking and leadership work that the city does. I just want to say, and it's at this time when you actually read through that it's really great body of work that the city is doing, to commend the work that's done by staff in supporting really the vision of council, as well with the quality of the work. So I know that there are still some styling work that's to be done on it, but in all, it was a really great read, so well done.
Thank you, Councillor Fotakis. Look, I agree. I tried to do a summary in 2 pages and I've struggled, and it's really just highlights. I think that we are a very small local government, but we do work very hard to achieve a lot in 1 year alone, 1 financial year. And I think also just noting that some of the things that we have achieved in this financial year are firsts from the 40-kilometre speed zone trial through to things like finalising our verge tree swing policy, just small things that are challenging the status quo, and I think that we should be proud of the depth and breadth of the work that we all do together. Thank you, everyone. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Declare it carried. That brings us to another financial item with an absolute majority decision required, which is the November 2019 budget review, including carry forwards. I have a mover and seconder, please. Moved Councillor Loden, seconded Councillor Fotakis. Do you wish to speak to it?
No.
Councillor Fotakis?
No, thank you.
Okay. Any comments? All right, I'm putting it. All those in favour? I declare it carried unanimously. So we're now going back to CEO items because we have concluded all of the community and business services items for the evening. We've dealt with 12.1, so we're going to 12.2, appointment of elected member to the Metropolitan Regional Road Subgroup, Central. Can I have a mover? Councillor Hallett, seconded Councillor Toppelberg. Councillor Hallett.
Thank you. I strongly support the recommendation to appoint someone to the Regional Road Subgroup, and unless anyone else is particularly keen, I'm happy to put forward my name as a nomination.
Fabulous. Thank you so much, Councillor Hallett. Councillor Toppelberg, do you wish to speak?
Just trying to encourage my colleague to have a secret ballot because we haven't had one this year. So go on.
Okay, I will call for any expressions of interest to nominate. We have a nomination on the table from Councillor Hallett. Are there any further nominations to be received? No, we have one nomination. I'm going to put it. All those in favour? Declare it carried unanimously. Congratulations, Councillor Hallett. 12.3, lease of a portion of the Grandstand, Mezzanine, Aerobics room and old administration offices at Beatty Park Leisure Centre, WA Swimming Association. This is another absolute majority decision. Can I please have a mover and seconder? Moved Councillor Loden, seconded Councillor Fotakis.
I'm happy to support the officer recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Fotakis.
Ditto.
Are there any speakers against this item? Okay, we'll put it. All those in favour? I declare it carried unanimously. 12.4, Council recess period 2019 to 20. Delegated authority to the Chief Executive Officer. This is another absolute majority decision. Can I have a mover and seconder, please? Moved Councillor Loden, seconded Councillor Hallett. Do you wish to speak to the item? Do you wish to speak to the item, Councillor Hallett? Any comments or questions? Councillor Toppelberg.
Thank you. I know we didn't discuss that at great length, and I won't move to make any changes now, but I think that the call-in power that has been traditional here, which is the power of one, is something that we need to consider, and perhaps we can discuss at a workshop sometime between now and next year's recess. But I do think that there have been some issues that have, for whatever reason, arrived at that time that have been somewhat can be quite vexatious, and I think that we should potentially look at a minimum of 3 or something similar, but we'll leave it for now. But I think the idea of having that power for an individual is probably more than is necessary given the delegations, but happy to support it as is.
Thank you for your comment. Any further comments or questions? Okay, I'll put it. All those in favour? I declare it carried unanimously. That concludes our open the items that are being considered in open session this evening. So we do have one confidential item to deal with, and when that is concluded, we will come back to the live stream to read out Council's decision. But for the time being, we will move to go behind closed doors. Can I please have a mover and seconder to go behind closed doors? Moved Councillor Castle, seconded Councillor Hallett. All those in favour? Councillor Wallace. Thank you. Thank you. Council has just resumed an open meeting after dealing with one confidential item this evening, which was 17.1, appointment of Executive Director, Community and Business Services. Council has adopted the following motion, which was adopted unanimously, that Council, pursuant to Section 5.37 subsection 2 of the Local Government Act 1995, accepts the recommendation of the Chief Executive Officer to employ the preferred candidate as the City's Executive Director, Community and Business Services on a 5-year contract of employment, subject to the terms and conditions as determined by the Chief Executive Officer. Thank you very much. So at 4 minutes to 8, I will declare the last meeting for 2019 closed. Thank you very much, everybody, and Merry Christmas.